We are joined now by Professor Alan Dershowitz of Harvard Law School. He's Professor Emeritus there. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, just to explain people who are just joining us, this William Singer was allegedly the leader of this ring, and he operated out of Southern California, at least in part, as somebody who helped your kid get into college. He did admissions counseling. And his approach initially was two-pronged. He had one very elaborate scheme to help kids cheat on the ACT or the SAT, which involved having them submit a note from a doctor that they needed extra time because they had learning disabilities, and then he would get someone in the room to either take the test or change their answers. His other venue was to bribe coaches at various universities to say that they were recruiting the child for one of the athlete spots and get them in that way. That coach would take a bribe, and then when the kid got to school, they would either fake an injury, not, join the team for a minute and quit, or just say that they changed their mind about playing the sport. And some people, they said, they alleged in this press conference, paid as much as $6 million, and they paid the money to a charity, so everybody involved deducted the amount of their bribe from their taxes.
Wow.
What is the penalty for something like this? I mean, how do you see this case unfolding?
Well, first of all, this is the worst scandal involving elite universities in the history of the United States. Let there be no doubt about this. Nobody can diminish the importance of this, involving as it does some of the major universities in the country. Look, every individual who's charged should be presumed innocent. We have to wait and hear the evidence. But this involves the most elite universities, coaches, the SAT, the ACT. This is really one of the great scandals of the 21st century. Having said that, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. Remember, this doesn't involve the super rich. The super rich buy buildings for the university. They donate hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. They don't have to worry about their kids getting in. This involves the very rich, the people who can't quite afford to give a building but can afford to spend $5 or $6 million. And once this investigation is complete, we will see that this person, Singer, if the allegations are true, went over any possible line and did clearly commit crimes, and apparently he's pleading guilty, that in some respects this is a matter of degree, that we will see other mini scandals involving contributions to the universities, coaches who are prepared to stretch the rules. Look, at bottom, the fault for this lies in the fact that we've abolished grades at universities in many parts of the country. Nobody fails anymore. Because if we went back to the situation that occurred when I started teaching at Harvard almost 60 years ago, this couldn't work because these students would fail out. It didn't pay for them to come into a college because they wouldn't make it through if they didn't have the academic resources to make it. But today, nobody fails. And today, nobody gets bad grades. Nobody even gets C's. And in many universities, they've abolished grades. So there's no way of testing whether they are qualified or competent. Once they get into college, many just sail through because of the way universities have decided to treat their students. And so I think we will see this as the tip of a very deep iceberg. Look, I don't believe there should be special slots for athletes. Colleges are not supposed to be about athletics. Athletics are supposed to be collateral. But today, kids who aren't qualified or are minimally qualified get in because they're a good quarterback or a good soccer player. That's the beginning of the problem. Now, this case doesn't involve that. This case involves overt cheating, and particularly on the SATs and bribery. And so it crosses a line. But I think once this investigation unfolds, we'll see that there is more to this than just the really bad guys at one end of this spectrum. It's a continuum.
Yeah. This is so elaborate, this scheme, because he had developed relationships, it seems, and they said this in part, but it's obvious from how it played out. He had established relationships with coaches at many different universities, with people who worked within the testing community at the SAT and the ACT. I mean, it is so elaborate to have connections in all these places and to find people in all of these places that would be willing to take bribes it seems like inevitably it was going to come out. The way they said that they stumbled upon this was a totally unrelated case. They had someone in their grips who said, by the way, I have a huge scandal that you guys don't know anything about, and here's a tip on it, and that's how they got started down this road. I would ask you...
And that's the way many of these...
That's the way it happens, yeah. And conspiracy, I mean, like, what is that? So this is racketeering, no?
This is RICO, racketeering. It involves an enterprise. Obviously, the Singer Company is the enterprise. And through the enterprise, they committed these crimes of bribery, of fraud, of cheating. And RICO carries a very, very significant criminal sentence. It also has civil liability. And we're going to see this thing spread. Questions are going to raise whether the kids who got in should have their diplomas revoked. What if they got A+? And what if they did very, very well? It involves, obviously, the coaches, each of whom is presumed innocent, some of whom took the money for themselves, according to this indictment, some of whom shared the money with the university. The real question is how high up in the university does this go, and how high up in the SAT and ACT does this go? You know, I hope it doesn't bring about the result of abolishing the SAT or abolishing the ACT. That would be a terrible mistake. It would mean that kids get into universities based on who their parents are, their personalities, collateral factors like race and other issues. We still need standardized testing, but now we've seen the standardized testing being corrupted itself. So this is a major, major scandal that involves every aspect of admissions to universities. I hope I'm right by saying Harvard isn't involved, because at least at the moment, the university that I taught at for 50 years doesn't seem to be involved, though the university I went to, Yale Law School, does seem involved. It's just such a tragedy. It's a tragedy for kids who didn't get into college because other kids cheated their way into college. It's a tragedy for innocent people at these universities who will now be suspect. And so we have to carefully look at the evidence and make sure that the presumption of innocence remains, but that if there is evidence of guilt, the guilty are punished.
Yeah, and the question becomes, a lot of these students are currently at these schools right now. What does the university decide to do about that? They made that point that it would be up to the university to decide if the child stays. Professor Alan Dershowitz, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.